Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and in this video I'm going to continue the team building series that I started recently, and in this video we're going to talk about the DPS units of the purple element. And there are not many, so this video is hopefully going to be quite short, and I will probably talk about all the future units, and I'm specifically mentioning this in this video because white is likely going to be purple, so it won't be included in this video obviously as it's not released yet, but I will mention his themes and synergies on his videos, not on a dedicated video like this one. So this is more to fill in the gaps with old units or units that are already released when I record a video kind of thing. So yeah, if you're interested on units that are released after, just look their own videos and don't refer to this one. So yeah, the three units we're going to talk about in this video are going to be Khun Mascheny, Hoaqin, and Vivi. Everyone else in purple is not really a DPS. We could potentially, if we are crazy enough, mention Gustang, but he's not a main DPS. He will deal DPS, but you cannot really build around him with a team. It's kind of tricky. It's not a DPS. He's a support, so whatever. You can build him as an offensive support, but still doesn't make him a main DPS kind of unit. Another option, maybe Kiseiya, but again, she's not really a DPS. She's more of a tech unit to assassinate certain targets, and again only really works at low to mid deficits. Once you start hitting the 300 deficit, she won't really do her job that well, so you might as well just ignore her. And Reflejo potentially could be played offensively, but I would still say Hoaqin and Vivi deal more damage than him, so I wouldn't really consider him a DPS. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to talk more about a DPS build for Reflejo, but I would tell you guys just use him as a frontline. He is fine because he has the damage received cap after the special move, so he can tank perfectly fine no matter the deficit. And yeah, that's the best use of him. Don't try to run him as a DPS. That's just my general recommendation. So yeah, these three are the units. I will say we can start with the first one, Khun Mascheny. She's going to be pretty straightforward and simple. As usual, we're going to try and go over different points on these units to try and figure out which units work best with her. And we know that she is heavily basic attack focused, like her special move deals nothing. Her active skills are important to buff her basic attacks, so the trident especially, but she's already getting a nice uptime with the Revolution 4, so it doesn't really matter to try and go for an Albelda Revolution 5, for example. Though Albelda will be a great support for her, just in general, because Albelda is crazy good. But yeah, you don't really have to stress too much about it. She has good swiftness buffs in her kit, so you won't need as much in the team, but everything is nice and will work just fine. She's an attack scaler, so obviously every attack buff she can get, she will definitely appreciate. She's a ranged unit without additional crit rate in her kit, so she will definitely make use of any additional crit rate you can give her. Again, as a basic attack unit, she definitely benefits from attack speed, so if we can increase her attack speed, that's going to be extremely beneficial. And she doesn't really have pierce in her kit, other than the basic attack pierce in the subnodes in Revolution. Other than that, she doesn't have magic resistance shred, magic pierce, anything of the sort. And so yeah, anything that can debuff the enemy resistances to magic damage will definitely be appreciated. So with that being said, let's start first with the mono purple team. And well, the frontline unit to run will most of the times be Karaka. If you don't have enough dupes of him, he's still going to be good. just for the amount of provokes he has so that he can draw aggro from enemies. If he's Revolution 4, he's massive for the grouping. It will make Mascheny just delete all enemies in AoE because she has AoE basic attacks, but it's only when the Trident is up, which is going to be most of the times if you're running her as a DPS and have a Revo 4. So having enemies grouped up is going to be super, super important. So Karaka Revo 4, a huge upgrade. An alternative, well, obviously you can run Reflejo, is fine. It won't have grouping, it won't have provoke, so you will have to find other ways to improve Mascheny's survivability. But it can work. He has a magic resistance steel, so that's fine. Not too shabby. It works well as a frontline unit. I wouldn't bother with Varagarv unless you're fighting like an Urek and you really desperately need the HP recovery block. Otherwise, everything else in his kit is not that important. He has a provoke, but it's just one in his kit, nothing major. So yeah. The other option, which is also one of the best options for her, especially if you're facing some super tanky units, his Ghost. He has up to 100% magic resistance shred in his kit, which is super good. He has a provoke, which is nice, but it is not as tanky as the other three options I mentioned. It's kind of squishy-ish. Probably with Revolution 5 it could be better, but I still haven't unlocked his Revolution 5, so I cannot tell. But it's definitely a prime option. Maybe even to run together with Karaka, for example. He will group them up, and this guy will... Because his AoE, like Ghost AoE, is a bit small on the Magic Resistance Shred, so having grouping is going to be helpful. Definitely an option. I would stick with the Karaka, just most scenarios. Then the other three units are going to be buffers for her. Now that Gustan got a buff, Gustan is definitely a viable option. I don't know if you guys have him. He will provide swiftness, he will provide attack increase, and just heals and debuff removal. Super nice. Not too mandatory. You can use somebody else if you don't have him. No problem, but yeah, definitely a really good support. And we have Kunagero, really good, just for the defense shred on the enemies, for the attack increase for all purple elemental eyes, and just for the stun that together with Karaka sort of grouping or just gathering attention, then you can definitely leverage to have an AoE stun in there, and then she will just melt them. Really, really good. Then we have the best support, I'd say, in the purple element, which is Yura. Yura is going to increase attack speed if you have a Revolution 4 by quite the amount. She's going to block the enemy regen. Damn it, I couldn't say that. So yeah, that's really good. And just in general, she will improve the survivability of Mascheny. She will also improve attack and all sorts of damage. Not too bad, not too shabby. I really like this unit as well. Super solid. She will be a mainstay for all the purple DPS that we have. So really, really good. Now, you might not have a Gustang, as I mentioned before. Potential alternatives would be either, again, as I mentioned, running a Ghost in this scenario, but probably it's more likely that you have a Gustang than you have a usable Ghost. So let's just remove him as well. I won't mention Rachel, so I won't. Again, last lot could be another tank just for increased survivability. Reflejo, totally fine. You might run Nare, especially if you have a Revolution 5 that boosts, well, more like Revolution 4 that boosts the attack and defense of your Mascheny. A Revolution 5 that also decreases the enemy resistances. Really good. So she's definitely viable. It's just that she doesn't rely on the special move, so having the additional energy is not that important. Still fine. I will say she's a really good unit. So these are kind of the teams you can run in a mono purple team. And in terms of going for the best possible team for her, I will say I would still keep Karaka or Ghost or whatever as a frontline unit. Definitely a really good option. Albilda will be the unit I would put right next to her so that she can get that crazy amount of attack. And if you have a really invested Albilda, she's also, well, not invested, but duped up with Revolution 5. She's also going to provide higher uptime on the Trident, especially useful if your Mascheny is like 3 red, so doesn't have access to Revolution 4, then that Revolution 5 from Albilda is going to be a lot more impactful. If you already have a Revolution 4 Mascheny, you won't notice the Revolution 5 effect as much. Still, the invincibility is really, really good. Yeah, this is probably one of the best supports for the majority of the units, I would say, nowadays. In terms of the last slot, we have a few options. As I mentioned, crit rate is beneficial, attack speed is beneficial, crit damage is beneficial. Yellowy is an amazing support for her, so you might as well run her. This might not be the best most of the times, but it can definitely work, and I can see this being super, super good. Now, another alternative that we have in the green element would be a regular Leroro. Now, this guy, as I mentioned in one of the previous videos, has a lot of issues in survivability. So, that's like he would potentially be the best in slot unit for her, but unfortunately, you cannot really leverage him as much. If he can survive, amazing. It will provide 80% magic pierce. It will provide resistance to projectiles to the whole team. Amazing. And also a 140% basic attack coefficient. And as we said, Mascheny revolves around basic attacks. So amazing, amazing support. You could run, as always, Anniversary Iwa. She just boosts attack and survivability. Pretty cool. Nothing major. And yeah, I would say those are the main units. Novik would have also the basic attack coefficient increase that's higher than regular Leroro, but they have the same problem. So that's survivability. And I would rather have 80% magic pierce than have the additional 60% basic attack coefficient. From my point of view, that's a bit better. And also the survivability that regular Leroro brings to the team is a bit higher. But Novik is again a really good option. Let me see if there are other ones. Well, obviously you can run Ghost Tank if you have him Revolution 4 or 5, I believe. So yeah, for the additional attack and defense, good. It's fine. You can run this guy if you have him duped up and with the Revolution 4. Definitely go ahead and use him. From yellow, I wouldn't really bother with anyone. So yeah, these are kind of the units. And I will leave here Yelway. A Revolution 5, which is a bit more easy to use than a regular Leroro, I would say. So this is kind of the comp I could recommend. Purple teammates, as we are going to see for the next two ones as well, kind of work well in their own element. So I oftentimes use them in mono purple, even in adventure. They really work well. You don't have a lot of issues. So you're better off just using Albilda with someone else, Yellowy with Viol, stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion and the how I would play Mascheny in general. For the next unit, I'm going to talk about Hoaqin. This guy is a monster early game, kind of falls off later on. He deals physical damage. His main source of damage is going to be the special move if you build the team around it. Otherwise, basic attacks are going to be a solid portion of his kit. And that's also one of the reasons why it was run with Thundance. And it can still be run with it perfectly fine. Or you can run a Sela, or you can run a Rafflesia. Up to you. I would say Rafflesia might be a better pick now, especially if you go the special move route. But kind of up to you. Sela will perfectly work and is probably still the most solid option. So yeah, he skills off of attack. He is a warrior, so he doesn't really have access to anything, and he's also an SSR, so he doesn't have crit rate in his kit. So if you can increase it, that's good. Attack speed is okay to generate more energy to cast the special move, and just in general, if you're using him for basic attacks, that's going to be pretty valuable. For resistance shred, he already has a 60% in his kit, which is quite high, but you can always use some more. And that's about it, I would say. So you usually want to run him, or well, he really performs better on a team that heavily focuses on grouping and just having him spam the special move. So Nare is a really solid pick. Yura, as I mentioned before, super beneficial to every single purple DPS, so you always want a runner, and also the passive that makes units that die just resurrect is pretty solid, so she's an amazing unit. And then for the last slot, either this guy that can stun enemies grouped, but you won't need it as much because you already have a jolt from his special move, which is insane if the enemies can be jolted. So yeah. Kunagero buffs the attack and has a defense shred, which is always helpful, but not that much. We have Gustang that can be helpful with Hoaqin. He already has some life stealing in the kit, which is boosted by Gustang's passive. It gives attack, it gives swiftness, it gives yeah, that's basically it. So he's a really good and solid option. For the front line, the usual Karaka always works, and it has grouping with the Revolution 4. So if you have a Revolution 4 Karaka, highly recommended. And in general, it works really well with Varagarv because one of the weak points of Hoaqin is Urek, as for many DPS units. And having an HP recovery block is good. He also has a physical resistance shred, which for Hoaqin is really good. Reflejo might be a better option if you're not against an Urek, because he won't have HP recovery block, but he will have an higher physical resistance shred, which again Hoaqin already has 60% of, but still anything you can get is better. I'd personally run Karaka again. So yeah, kind of up to you. But of the three options, I would say Karaka is the best if you have him Revolution 4. Otherwise, Varagarv is the best. And then Reflejo, just because he won't do much. At least this guy has a provoke. This guy doesn't, like Reflejo doesn't. So yeah, that's kind of the team you can run. You might even run a Kisea here instead of Gustang if you don't like Gustang buff or Kunagero buff. She's also fine. I wouldn't really bother too much with other units. You could also run Vivi as a sub DPS here as well. Could be potentially good. So yeah, up to you. But this is kind of the idea. Then for his best team, just in general, I will say unfortunately is always kind of the same. You want to go with Albelda for him, and then Mam Anak. For the last slot, Nare works fine. Yura, amazing, but you already have a lot of survivability. So, like, you can decide. Depending on who you have, Yura and Nare, perfectly fine. If you want to replace one of the two with Garam, that's also totally fine. It will entirely be up to you. She will boost this guy's special move by quite a ton, so that's really good. But that's really up to you. If you do something like this guy will have like 4 special move on the field at the same time. It will be perma jolt. If the enemy is not immune to it, they will just be shredded. It won't work as super high deficits, but with this kind of team, it can really push his limits. Really good. So again, kind of up to you what you want to run. All of these variations work. I would recommend to go with this kind of setup with the heavily special move spam kind of team. But if you were to go with a more basic attack based one, then just remove these 2 guys and go with the usual, say, Gustang, and then here a Karaka or Varagarv kind of team. As you see, purple is really relying on purple. There are a lot of good units there. So yeah, this is kind of the idea. Let me know if you have any questions on this guy or whatever, but it's pretty straightforward. Then for the last unit, we have Vivi. Most of her damage comes from basic attacks, thanks to the exclusive equipment that gives a max HP scaling on it. Unfortunately, it's capped based on her base attack, so... Well, not base attack, but her attack. So, yeah, you still kind of want to build offensive stats on her. You want to increase her attack. And she won't be as good as an Eden, for example. Eden also has HP scaling, but is not restricted by his own attack. She will be restricted, so she has a ceiling, and she won't really work at any kind of deficit, but she is really good. Her best set, I would say, is Sundance. I wouldn't run her with L, because you can, if you have her 3 red with the 7 levels in attack speed, she will proc the exclusive achievement 100% of the time, so you don't need to have L set to activate it. And the bonus from Sundance is absolutely amazing. She's a ranged unit without crit rate, so again, crit rate will definitely be beneficial. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention before, but also yellowy was an okay option for Hoaqin. Kind of up to you guys. But yeah. So for Vivi, again, attack speed is super important. Swiftness is really good. Crit rate and crit damage are good. And she doesn't really have shred in her kit, so any kind of pierce that you can give her or physical resistance shred on the enemies is going to be good. So for the mono purple team, again, identical thing as Hoaqin, Caraca, Varagarv, or Reflejo. Those 3 are your options. Let's just stick with Varagarv, for example. Varagarv is a little less useful than with Hoaqin because Vivi already has HP recovery block in her kit. It's single target, but can work. Like 99% of her damage is single target anyway. Well, actually all of it. So yeah, not too important, but definitely a really good unit for the additional physical resistance shred. And then the other units, as usual. You want to go with Yura for attack speed, attack, etc, etc. Her special move also deals max HP damage. Again, limited by her attack, but a unit like Nare works really good to have her spam the special move and also increase her attack, which in turn increases her damage. Then we have Gustang, really good. You can replace any of the 2 with Kunagero, perfectly fine, perfectly viable. And I would say that's pretty much the team. You really want to buff her attack, so I would say triple support is recommended. I wouldn't run like a... I mean, potentially you can run an Hoaqin, it won't buff Vivi, but it will at least shred the enemy resistance. You can also run a Reflejo instead. So if you have his Revolution, because it will shred resistances by more than Hoaqin, only if he has Revolution unlocked. Like 4 or 5, I don't remember which one of the 2 was. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. And yeah, I would say you don't really want to run on anyone else. You don't really want to run a Kiseiya. So yeah, those are the options. Either the 2 supports, Reflejo, or Hoaqin in the last slot. Let's just keep Reflejo as an example. Perfectly fine, something like this is totally okay. Now, for the best team for her, she's kind of, again, we can keep this unit. We can keep this unit as a frontline unit. There are really not many that are better, unless we want to go with the special move spam variation, which also works. So we could do something like this. Unfortunately, she's a mainstay for everyone. She's just too strong. With Revolution 5, without it, doesn't matter for her as much. She doesn't really have crazy active skills. So yeah, you can just run her even at 0 dupes. She will be a super amazing buff. If you don't want to go for the special move variation, and I think you should, and it is really not that relevant, there are way better users of Anak. So I'd rather go with a yellowy in this case, for the additional attack speed, super beneficial. Crit rate and crit damage, again, super important. And then for the last slot, again, Varagarv, absolutely fine. And this kind of composition, I think, really, really works well. Let's say we don't want to run Albelda, you can really do whatever you want. You can run another purple support. Purple really has good support, so you can run whatever you want. They'll work fine. You want to run an additional Reflejo, you can do it. You want to run a Karaka for additional grouping and do something like this, you can totally do it. And yeah, in terms of other units of other colors, there's not much. Garam, always viable, obviously. You can run Novik as well, but I wouldn't say it's that important. And regular Lororo is worse than Novik because she deals physical damage, not magic. Anniversary-Iwa, always viable, obviously, if you want to do something like this, or with Varagarv instead of Karaka, that's also a possibility. Something like this, I would say. So as you can see, a lot of different options, a lot of versatility, but at the end of the day, you will see like similar familiar faces everywhere. Like always the same supports that are super good. And you will almost never see Bum and Evan outside of yellow. Unfortunately. Like yellow really has shitty supports. They all suck. Other than those two, and they have to and they're basically one because you cannot separate them. Really sucks. Everyone else cannot really help. So terrible. And yeah, now red has like 3 of the most OP units, even across colors. We could even argue Warion is an okay one that you can run most of the times, sure. So yeah, this is kind of the teammates you could run with a Vivi. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!